Hi, my name is Elle Billing. I am a chronically ill queer femme, and I'm tired. I'm here this episode and every episode to dig at the roots of our collective fatigue, explore ways to direct our care in compassionate and sustainable ways, and harness creative expression to heal ourselves and our world. And welcome to Hoorf, radical care in a late capitalist hexscape. Hey there, it's Elle. Before we get into the main content of this episode, I just wanted to make a little note here about the content and the nature of the content of this episode. It gets a little heavy. We're talking about things that are a little dark at times. And I just want to make a note that Andrew and I are not medical, nor are we mental health professionals. We're just two disabled people talking through our feelings of frustration, fear, and concern about disability, illness, pain, and the language around death and directed death. So I would like to encourage our listeners to exercise some care for yourself while you're listening to this episode. If it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's okay. If you are experiencing thoughts of suicide, please reach out to local services, a friend, even to us, because we really do want you to stay. My guest today is Andrew Gurza. Andrew Gurza is an award-winning disability awareness consultant and the chief disability officer and co-founder of Bumpin', a sex toy company for and by disabled people. Andrew uses they, he pronouns and identifies proudly as disabled. Their work has been featured on BBC, CBC, Daily Extra, Gay Times UK, The Huffington Post, The Advocate, Everyday Feminism, Mashable, Out.com, and several anthologies. He was the subject of an award-winning National Film Board of Canada documentary, Picture This. Andrew has guested on a number of podcasts, including Dan Savage's Savage Love and Cameron Esposito's Query. He has spoken all over the world on sex, disability, and what it means to be a queer cripple. Andrew is also the host of Disability After Dark, the podcast shining a bright light on disability stories, which won a Canadian Podcast Award in 2021, was a Queerty Award nominee, and was chosen as an honoree at the 2020 Webby Awards. The show is available on all platforms. Andrew is also the creator of the viral hashtag, Disabled People Are Hot. I'm so excited to have Andrew on the podcast with me today, again, as he was last season. And welcome, Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Welcome to Hoorf.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I should say welcome back to Hoorf. I had you on last season.
Right?
It's so great to have you back.
So great to be here again.
Yes, it's great to... Yes, I'm just happy to see you. We always have a good time. So... Yeah, I'm really happy to have you here. Our topic is way different than last time.
It's a little dark. It's a little...
Yeah, we had a lot of fun last time talking about horny stuff. So for new listeners, go back and listen to the last time I had Andrew on the podcast. We talked about how disabled people are hot.
We are hot. We're still hot.
And let's be honest, before we hit record, we were having the same conversation.
We were 100% having the same conversation. We were talking about Pound Town.
We were talking about Pound Town.
Pound Town? Yeah.
Been a long, dry winter.
Been a long... Yep, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's... I think we had to like sort of amp ourselves up to talk about something quite a bit more serious today. And before we get into that, I will ask you my first question, which is, how have you received care this week?
I just received care an hour ago. My attendant came and fed me lunch, so I had lunch with them, and I got up with them today, and my care has been pretty good. Like my personal attendant care, in terms of how I've received, like, other kinds of care. It's hard because I live by myself, and like, but well, one of the ways I can say that I have received care is I have a Zoom meeting every week with a bunch of disabled friends, and we call ourselves the Symptom Sisters, and we watch movies together.
That's amazing.
That was really fun. We do that every week, and we all look forward to it super lots. I really enjoyed that. That was one of the ways that I received care, and I saw my best friend with a disability. She came and stayed with me this past weekend, and we don't usually get to see each other because we both have severe disabilities, and so I love that.
Oh, I'm so glad you got to do that.
It was a lot of fun.
Are you still getting to go see your mom a lot?
Yeah, I just saw her the other day. She's flying to Australia in about a week.
Okay.
And so I won't see her again till May. So she'll be down there for 5 weeks, and then she's off to Florida for a month after that. So I won't see her for a good long time. So I made the point of going there about
Nice.
2 days ago to just spend the afternoon. It was really nice.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I've said before, like a million times on the podcast, and you know this, I live with my mom, so I see her all the time.
Yeah.
I was actually supposed to have a little break. Last week, my parents had a vacation planned. They were going to go to Tennessee to visit one of my mom's sisters, and then I was gonna have the week to myself. A friend was gonna come stay. We were gonna do, like, our art projects together. My friend's a writer and a photographer, and I'm a painter. And we were gonna sort of have, like, a little retreat here at the farm, me
Yeah.
and my friend and my dog, and then my mom got sick and didn't like, barely had the energy to even walk into the doctor from the car.
Oh no.
Um, and so my dad was like, "Do you think she can even, like, go to an airport?" I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
as much as I need a break, like, she can't travel." And so they stayed home, and it turned out, my friend couldn't come either. And then the whole week that was supposed to be everybody's vacation, all of us were sick.
Oh,
I was sick, my mom was sick, my dad got sick. It was the worst week ever.
the hits just keep on coming.
Yeah. So there was a lot of, like, mutual caregiving, and no house cleaning was done. Like, our I was like, "So this is what it looks like when none of us are functioning. We all come apart at the seams, the dishes pile up, the dog is just stir crazy because no one can play with her." It's like, "Oh, this is what it looks like when no one can do, like,
Yeah, when there's no
our basic
care.
tasks." Yeah. When we're, like, in survival care mode and just sucking down cough drops and taking cold medicine and
When you wish you were sucking down other stuff. Uh,
like hot soup,
sure,
which
that's
I
hard
did not
though.
have the energy to make for
Are
myself.
you
I
drinking
make
out of a
my soup from scratch.
Are you drinking out of a Stanley Cup
I
right
am
now?
not. You wanna know my funny story about Stanley Cups? When I saw them going viral on social media, 'cause I'm a little weird about my social media. I'm not, like, on it all the time. I do it mostly for my business. I didn't see any pictures. I only heard people talking about Stanley Cups. I thought it was a menstrual product.
You know, you're probably not the first person who thought it was a menstrual product.
No, this is like a cheap knockoff, from TJ Maxx. I just
Is it
needed a big cup that was brightly colored that I could
remember to drink out of?
not lose and drink. Yeah, remember
Yeah,
to drink out of.
smart.
No, I don't usually hop on viral trends.
I don't blame you, they're stupid.
My mom wanted to go to TJ Maxx one day when we were in Fargo, and I really, really didn't wanna go, and she's like, "I just need to go look for this one thing." My mom never just buys one thing, and I know that. As her driver, I know how my mom shops, and I said, "Okay, fine, but you have to buy me a treat. Like, I will take you to TJ Maxx, but you have to buy me a treat." She said, "Okay, fine." I didn't find any treats in, like, the TJ Maxx, like, food section that I could eat. There wasn't anything I could
Oh,
have.
yeah, because you can't eat
A lot of things.
pretty much everything. Yeah, yeah.
The thing I really wanted wasn't there, and, so I got a cup, and it has really boosted my hydration game,
You can
which is
just say you
good
can
because my brain has not had a good winter, and I haven't had access to my migraine medication since before Christmas. So I
wow,
am having to be very judicious about hydration and what I eat just to
very
try and keep
careful.
my brain functioning. So no, this is not a Stanley Cup. It's just a cheap knockoff, and it's bright pink, so I can always find it.
I love the color, I'm here for it.
Thank you. All right, so we've had our fun.
Yep, let's get into the
It's
heavy shit.
time to get into the heavy shit. And I know a thing or two about heavy shit. I'm a farm girl. I used to, pitchfork that stuff. That was a really bad segue. I was just trying to be.
It was, but I
I'm
liked it
still
though.
trying. I'm like, no, whatever. Okay, so I live in the U.S. You live in Ontario, Canada. Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and like I know I follow a few like disabled activist content creators from the UK, and I know that each of our countries have different like social support systems for individuals with disabilities,
Yep.
and I know they each work differently. I'm still figuring out how ours works. Partly because I'm still waiting for my disability determination, and I applied in October of 22.
Wow.
It is now at the date of this recording is February of 24. I have been out of full-time work since March of 2021. And our determination process, if you have previously worked and can no longer work, is different than if you have never been able to work. It's like two different
Streams. Yeah.
streams and two different income levels. Like, so you get more money if you used to work than if you've never worked.
Yeah. Again, proving that capitalism is the worst.
The worst. So I'm still waiting. I'm out of money. It's and there's this whole part of our thing is like you apply and nobody gets it the first time, and then you appeal and then you get an attorney, and it's just ridiculous. And the thing on my determination and is like, well, you haven't demonstrated that you can't adjust to other work because I can't do the work I used to do. And they're like, well, you could do other work. And I'm like, I really can't. Like, I sleep 14 hours a day. When am I supposed to do other work?
Yeah.
Like, I can't sit at a computer all day. I can't do work standing because I can't stand that long. Okay, so do work sitting. All sitting work is at a computer, and I can't work on a computer that long because of my light sensitivity. So, like, what am I supposed to do? But I need a lawyer to tell them that because they don't believe me.
Of course. Of course. Why
Right?
would they
And
believe
it's
you?
so protracted and it's terrible. And in the meantime, like, we're supposed to still be trying to survive on no money while we wait for them to decide if they're going to give us money.
Isn't that the fun part of this whole thing?
And that is how it works in the US.
That's brutal.
Yeah. And so, can you give us just a very brief synopsis of what, like, Canada's or even just Ontario's support system for disabled Canadians looks like, and like how that works for you?
Yeah, it's not tied to our system in Ontario. It's called Ontario Disability Supports
Okay.
Program, or more readily known as ODSP here.
Hmm.
And that's what all of us who are eligible for it can apply for. Um, the trouble with a program like this is that, similar to yours in the US, you often have to apply a number of times to get
Hmm.
approved. I was approved when I was 16, and my mom was the trustee at that point and used the money to care for me, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And then when I turned 18, they were like, "Oh, you get to manage this now, so it's your money." But up until just last year, you could only make $200 a month before they clawed you back.
200.
That happened in 1998, and at that point, you could only get a couple $100. And so the way the way that I've been living on it is, you every dollar you make, you try to find ways for companies to um companies that I work with to flag it as honorarium, to pay you under the table, to you just don't claim it, you just don't say what you're making because you have to survive.
Hmm.
And just this year, after 25 years of the program, they've upped the rate you're allowed to make before they claw you back to $1,000 a month,
Okay.
which is
I mean,
still,
it's an improvement, but it's not much.
it's not that great. So that, that doesn't leave a lot of room for people who can work. I'm privileged in that I can do freelance on occasion, and I get the opportunity to do freelance writing and freelance. I've done some freelance stuff for you, and so like I get the opportunity to do things like that. But that's ebb and flow. So
Right.
I never know when that's coming. I never know what the contract is. It's never a regular continual contract. It's often like one job, and then you won't work for a few weeks. It can be very, very piecemeal, and that
Right.
makes it very hard to survive. So anybody that can work Like that money you get every month is goes immediately to your bills, and then you're broke the next day.
Yep. It
Like so that and that's the kind of system that I'm living under, and I have the privilege of being able to work a little bit, but again, it's really piecemeal.
right. And then when something happens, like when you ended up in the hospital for emergency surgery, like you're definitely not working then.
Yeah, yeah. And so like the government doesn't give a shit about that, and you're supposed to make $1,400 when our rents in Ontario are increasing consistently every year.
Yep. Here
Um,
too.
Even with subsidy I'm paying 610 a month, and I only get 1,400 from the government. So if I wasn't working under the table or making a little bit here and there, I
Hmm.
couldn't survive. There's no way I could survive, and
Yeah.
so it's just a shame that this is where we are. I think universal basic income is where we need to go. And I don't think that Ontario or Canada, for that matter, has the infrastructure to support that, even though during the pandemic we saw they could give us relief for $2,000 a month.
Right.
So if you can give people $2,000 a month for emergency relief, why can't disabled people get that all the time?
Right. And it's a matter of priorities because I mean, I think about how much money in this country we dedicate to what we call defense spending. Who are we defending ourselves from, really? Um, the amount of money that gets put into the military industrial complex. Um, and then the first things that we cut are like small budget items,
Yeah.
like Social Security and Medicaid
And
and
somehow we
the
think it's okay
arts
to
and
have like,
education. Like that's going to actually help the budget when really our big spending items are things like the military, which is huge.
yeah,
So, yeah. Okay. So that's sort of the background of like what it's like to live as a disabled person in Canada or the US on social support, which is super difficult. It's like
you're constantly poor, you never have enough.
forced poverty.
Yeah, it's legislated poverty. It's without question legislated poverty, and
Yeah.
it's
Do you
it.
lose benefits if you get married?
Yes.
Okay,
So
same here.
in Ontario, if you even if you don't get married, if I move in with you, we are common law according to the rules of this program. Even if we're a roommate,
Yeah.
even if we're a roommate.
Household. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think for the purposes of the way I live, I'm considered a separate household from my parents because our finances don't intersect. Like they have their finances, I have my finances.
yeah.
I just live here, I think. Like that's how I'm playing it right now.
Fingers crossed that's true.
Right. And I mean that's Medicaid. My health insurance is letting me do it that way. And so far, like when I've been talking to the attorney, it sounds like that's going to be okay, like applying for disability and stuff. They're the ones who know the things. The attorney I have, the only cases they take are disability claims. So, like, I think they would tell me if there was going to be a problem. Um,
Uh, I hope they would, but also they're
yeah.
the
Well,
government. So I would also say like
yeah. Well, I mean, the attorney doesn't get paid unless I win my case. So,
yeah, yeah,
like, they get paid on contingency because they only get paid if I get benefits.
yeah.
So, they would probably only take the case if they thought they could get it for me. That's which it is in itself a whole like just the way the system is structured.
Oh yeah, the system is like designed to fuck you no matter what you do.
Yeah. So another layer to all of this, and something you've
This
been very passionately tweeting about,
passionately
just
for just talking about it, and I have so many,
talking about and on social media
and
and
I get in so much trouble for talking about it because I don't feel the way that everyone else feels.
right because no, I get it. Is MAID, which stands for Medical Assistance in Dying, which has been a law in Canada since 2016.
Yes,
Is that correct? Okay.
yes,
So it's seeking medical help to end one's
to
life.
end your life.
Yeah.
Yes,
Um, the intent of this was they don't want to prolong the suffering of people who have terminal illnesses and who want to end their life with dignity, is how it is
defined. Yeah,
defined by the able-bodied, non-ill people who wrote the law.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What are you seeing happen in Canada?
Well, I pulled up my little infographic because I want to read for you like what the original eligibility criteria is.
Okay.
So in
Excellent.
2016, when it came into law, the eligibility criteria for medical assistance in dying was that a person had to have a grievous and irredeemable medical condition, and natural death must be reasonably foreseeable. And then they would have safeguards such as, you would talk to medical professionals, you would go see a psychologist, you would get looked at to determine if you were eligible for this or if there was supports they could offer you. And then in 2021, they repealed the irredeemable and grievous part of it in something called Bill C7, where they opened it up for anybody who wanted to apply to MAID could apply.
Holy shit.
Yeah, we were, we, me in the community was not happy about this.
R-
It's
Right, because like okay, my mind is spinning. Yes. Okay, you and the community were concerned and upset. Tell me more.
basically if you could totally have a natural life as a disabled person and you chose to choose this program, they would accept you. And that just boggles my mind because why isn't the government looking at providing safeguards for disabled people like social supports, housing, medicine, all the things you would expect them to do? Instead, they're opening the floodgates to people who that want to end their lives, which again, I believe that everybody has the right to do that if they want to, but I feel like the government just kind of opened the floodgates on March 17th of 21 really was a slap in the face to disabled folks. Um,
Yeah.
it's a hard thing for me to talk about because I have a friend that I just spoke to on my podcast back a few months ago now, and she has applied for MAID. And when I started the episode with her, we were talking, and she was like, "I'm in so much pain every day. People don't realize I made this decision myself. I went and saw all the medical professionals.
Mhm.
They did all the stuff, and I've been cleared to go for MAID. And it was really hard to do that interview, but
Yeah.
it made me rethink my thoughts on it because I think the government needs to be very fucking careful how they talk about this thing and very fucking careful how they bring it about. But on the other side of that, if someone's in so much pain every day and my friend hasn't left her apartment in a year because of the pain she's in,
Right.
if she wants to go and she wants to end her life on her terms, she should be allowed to. I think the way that it is being, we constantly see it in the news up here, disabled people deciding to end their lives because they couldn't get housing or they
Mm.
couldn't get supports or they couldn't, and that kind of media spin on it, that's hard to see.
Right. And that's the part I'm seeing down here. Like those are the stories that are making it down here to the States, within the disability community that I'm seeing are, people who the government programs have failed them.
Yeah,
The social supports have failed them. But the one program that they can access is the one that allows them to die.
did I? Yeah,
They wouldn't need medical assistance in dying, or they wouldn't think they needed medical assistance in dying. They wouldn't feel like their illness is irredeemable, which even that word in the original law, like the choice of that word, I have feelings about. Like, holy cow, there's just so much baggage attached to
yeah,
that
yeah.
word.
Wow,
Um, People don't get to that point without a massive failure
in
at
support.
multiple levels of infrastructure and support.
Yeah,
And I think of your friend too who's in pain every day, and I think about my own experience with pain, which I'm not trying to compare to hers cuz I don't know your friend's pain. It's not the pain Olympics either.
yeah, yeah.
Um but like being misunderstood by doctors who don't understand chronic pain, and I just think about how little has been done in as far as like the understanding and treatment of chronic pain, and how little empathy we often get when we seek help. And I mean, adding in the layers of like the opioid epidemic and how people who truly need pain management are now cast as drug addicts. And
Yeah.
there's just
So many layers.
I'm having a hard time stringing my thoughts together because there's so many layers
Yeah.
to the medical ableism and the dismissal of disabled
Body.
stories and disabled bodies and disabled lives
Yeah.
that made it way too easy for them to say, "Oh, we could just get rid of this."
And it was kind of gross that they would enact this in March of 21, which is
And
right in the height of the pandemic.
uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah, that was yeah, I was getting to that too.
that sends a message to disabled people during the pandemic when they're trying hard to fight for their lives, quite literally, that, oh, you can just die. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Here's an option. I mean,
Not just the disabled people who already like who pre-existed the pandemic, but all of the new ones who were created by the mishandling of the pandemic.
yeah, yeah.
When I think of my friends who have long COVID or who developed ME/CFS, so chronic fatigue,
Myo.
or I actually know it, and
Me
I
too.
have
I just can't remember what it is now. Myo. MECFS. We'll go with that. That's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
ME/CFS, and that it bothers me that
The Googs. Do it.
myalgic encephalomyelitis.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes. It was gonna bother me if I didn't say it, which is the more, I think, accepted medical term for what used to more commonly be called chronic fatigue syndrome. Like, I know people who've developed that as a post-viral complication from COVID and other illnesses and long COVID complications, and it's like, "Oh, well, we don't really wanna deal with you, so here, we're gonna change this law, 2021." That's just it's so blatant.
And it's not long ago. It was literally 3 years ago. Like, it's not a long time at all. And they put a pause on it. They put a pause. They were gonna do another one this past year. They paused opening it up for people with mental health conditions because they were gonna open it up for people with mental health conditions to apply for MAID. And it
Nuh-uh.
and they put a pause because they want to take more time to see what the safeguard needs to be, what the benefits are, how people are responding. But it's just really scary. And we warned them. We all said this is going to be a slippery slope. And for my friend that chose it and has actively made the choice, I support her because that's a choice she made. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
I'm not going to take that away from her. Um, that's hers, and listening to her on my podcast episode 341. If you really want to listen to it,
Yep, I'll link it.
to Disability After Dark, it's on there. She goes into all that she had to do to make that assessment, and when you listen to her story, you're like, you know what? It makes sense for you. This is really truly what you want. I can tell this is what you want, so I support you. Still, it breaks my heart to know that my friend is going to end her life, but
Yeah.
it's her choice. And that I'll support. I won't support the government using it as a free for all for disabled people to die. I can't.
Yeah.
And so I'm of two minds of it in that way because I support people's right to choose that for
Mhm.
themselves. I don't support people being pushed into a corner because it's easier. And I've heard stories of there was a story of an Olympian here. Let me see if I can find the story because it was important. I'll see if I can
Yeah.
Google it. There was an Olympian a couple weeks ago. I saw it on my newsfeed come up who was offered MAID. Like Canadian Paralympian. It's like, what are you even doing? She's an Olympian. Like, of course she doesn't want to die. And the way it's being so callously offered, not the people who aren't Olympians
Right, I was just gonna
won't.
say, like, I'm not an Olympian, I don't wanna die. Although there have been days, when my pain was uncontrolled and unmanaged, where I didn't want to be left home alone
Yeah.
because not because I was actively ideating, but because I was scared I would do something to make the pain stop,
Yep.
that would put me in jeopardy.
So I found the story, but the story says a Paralympian trying to get a wheelchair ramp says she was offered assisted dying instead. So
Inst-
this is
oh, instead of accessibility.
yeah, yeah, and this is what we're doing to people. And I've seen stories where people who are in hospitals will have the nurses go into their room and be like, "Well, I'll be considered MAID," and it's like that part of it is just it's anger inducing because it's not something for able-bodied folks to throw around like candy. It's a really serious it's the end of your life. And if we're gonna talk about it, we need to talk about it with first of all grace and dignity and like exhaust every fucking option before you give somebody that option.
Yeah, grace and dignity, but also gravity.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
like exactly the truth.
I don't understand how anyone, especially somebody who is in the medical or helping professions, can see assisted dying as like the same level of choice as a wheelchair ramp.
Yeah. Now, pain is a completely different monster. You really are, and my friend really is. She's really in pain all the time. And so, you know what? Like I said, do what you need to do. I love you and respect you. I'll miss her, but it's what she needs for herself. I respect that. I don't respect governments who don't have the lived experience of making this decision and avoiding responsibility of social support when they should be offering that first.
Wow.
And I've had people online when I talk about that, people say like, "Well, everybody has the right to choose." Yes, they do, but is it a choice if you're not given the full picture? No, it's not.
Yeah, like that is such an excellent point because I'm gonna, this is, maybe this comparison is a little off, but like in the US, they refer to the military, like, because it's volunteer, right? But they refer to it as the poverty draft because for a lot of people who live below the poverty line, the only way they can afford higher education
Education is
is to join
yeah,
the military, and then the military pays for their education.
yeah,
Like that's not a choice at that point because our brains are still not fully developed when we're teenagers, and based on life circumstances and like where our families come from and all of these factors that play into the decision to enlist in the military, it is in many cases a false choice.
yeah,
It's the only way for some people to change the trajectory of their life.
yeah.
For something to be a choice, there has to be more than one option.
That's what a choice is. Yep.
And there has to be
Informed consent around what
enough information. There has to be access to that information. Just oh, I'm
there needs to be access to all the things.
access. Yeah.
And so again, I stand at this weird place where I'm straddling both worlds,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
I support people that want to do it. Do what you feel is right. But part of me is like, if you were given all of the support in the world, would you make this choice? And I think I come from a lot of privilege too, because I'm in pain every day, also. But when I was born, I fought like hell to live. And so part of me is like, why would I take my life in that way? But I mean, that's a whole other can of fish there. But like, you know, but that's not for me to say why somebody else would. I think they should have the option to. I think the government needs to hire, not just consult with, hire disabled people to be paid to do studies on this. And I read somewhere recently, I think that our medical assistance in dying in Canada is one of the highest in the world. Our numbers are one of the highest in the world.
That should tell us something.
I'm pretty sure it is. Let me just Google that and see if that's true. Let me pull up the CBC News article and just pull some stats from that directly. A new Health Canada report says that the number of medically assisted deaths in 22 was more than 30% higher than the year previous.
Wow.
Experts and advocates who spoke with CBC News questioned whether MAID growth rate and the percentage of deaths should be cause for concern. I think they should be a cause for concern, for sure they should. And so many advocates are calling the growth rate alarming and terrifying
Yeah.
because,
Those are great words.
yeah, really, it's scary.
Yeah.
Um, they're saying things like, and I'm quoting this person here, they're saying things like we should be ensuring that we never get to that point because we have better care available. I mean, I'm definitely not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but I
Uh-huh.
am a disabled person, and like those numbers scare me.
Mhm.
I don't we shouldn't be we need to fix our social nets. We need to enact universal basic income so that this doesn't happen. If we can show that throughout the pandemic, for the first 2 years, people were given $2,000 a month, great. Why can't we just translate that into every day or every month? People get that but it's because our systems are not designed for that.
Yeah, we're seen as disposable.
Yeah, and that's why when they enacted this idea, Bill C7, which is the repeal of the irredeemable and grievous need, when they enacted this part of the law on March 17th, 2021, that was only a year after the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
Basically, what you're reminding disabled folks is that we don't matter. But again, I don't know how to feel about it because I stand by the people that want to do it and have made the choice and have been medically cleared and like psychologically cleared to make that choice. I stand by you, but I'm also glaringly concerned about what that means for the rest of us.
Right. And I think being able to hold multiple truths at the same time is an important part of the conversation,
Yeah,
of any difficult conversation.
and my conversation with my friend April, again, episode 341 of my show,
Yep,
uh,
I'll link it in the show notes for
it
sure.
was one of the hardest ones I've ever had to do
Yeah.
because I'm looking at my friend and I know she's gonna die quite soon, within a year or so, and it was like, how am I talking to you right now so casually? And I like you're gonna agree to do this?
Yeah.
What? I can't.
Yeah.
And you're not even 40 yet. Like, well, you haven't even like what? And I just was heartbroken the whole time. But I love and respect her so much that I was like, thank you for sharing her story. And I felt it was so important to let her just share her story and not judge her for. And it changed my views on the whole thing. But
Yeah.
I'm still extremely wary of government intervention. The language, like one of the questions you were going to ask me today is what are the language I'm seeing? Irredeemable and grievous is
Yeah.
terrifying, but at least that language set a benchmark for what
Yeah.
they were looking
Yep.
for. Now that the benchmark is gone, anyone can apply. And I've seen Canadians with disabilities on TikTok talking about how they've applied for MAID. Like, it's not a trend, friends. It's the end of your life. Like,
Yeah.
can it be like, I get it. I get that it's important that we talk about it, but it's not like a cool thing we're all doing. It's the end of your life. And that's the part that scares me is that like young disabled Canadians who I'm not speaking about my friend here, I'm speaking about like the general public.
Yep.
Young disabled Canadians who haven't done the research, who haven't thought about it, who haven't who are who are who are young enough that they might still have a chance if they just got social support.
Yeah.
That's the part that it breaks my heart. Because do you know you're doing when you apply for MAID? Do you understand? Like to
Yep.
me, I could never be like, yeah, I'm gonna sign my death. Now, if I was in the same pain as my other friend, it might be different, and I might have privilege there around pain. And
Yeah.
I definitely do actually. There's no might there. I do have privilege, but I just think like the safety nets have to actually save you, and right now they're letting you fall through the cracks, and
Yeah.
it makes breaks my heart.
Well, thank you very much for being here and sharing all of this with us. I really appreciate your perspective and the time you took to explain all this.
It's a lot,
It is a
but I
lot.
but I'm I am grateful that I get to share my perspective, and I just want to let listeners know that my perspective is not the only one. There might be
Right.
other
Yep.
people who think MAID is great and necessary and important, and so I think we need to listen to them too.
Right. We are just two of
Two,
very many disabled people.
yeah, very many, and we are two in different ways. We are privileged disabled folks talking about this stuff. So like,
Yes. Yes, we are.
so remember that as
And
we're
it
saying this.
impacts us differently than it would impact somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for adding that. I really appreciate that perspective as well. It was so
Awesome.
great to have you here.
It's always so fun to be here,
Yes, I
and
appreciate you so much, Andrew.
it's amazing, and I would love to come back anytime you want me.
Yeah, we'll do maybe a little different something next time.
Yeah, like a much lighter,
Yeah.
fun, happy topic.
Yeah, we'll pick something a little lighter next time.
Awesome.
Okay,
Um,
thank you so much.
do you want me to plug myself?
Sure. Yeah.
So if you want to follow my work, you can go to andrewgurza.com. You can donate to my work there. You can follow my social media. You can book me for talks there. Please book me for talks. I give great talks to organizations. So if you're an organization and you want to hire a disabled person, cool. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at AndrewGurza6. Uh, what else do I do? You can listen to Disability After Dark, new episodes every Sunday. Um, and yeah, thank you.
Cool.
That's it.
Thanks for being here.
Anytime.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Hoorf. To view the complete show notes and all the links mentioned in today's episode, or to get a full transcript of the episode, visit hoorfpodcast.com. That's HOORF podcast.com. Before you go, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you can receive new episodes right when they're released. And if you're enjoying our podcast, I'd love to have you leave us a review in Apple Podcasts. Reviews are one of the major ways that Apple ranks their podcasts, so even though it only takes you a few seconds, it really does make a difference for us. Become a patron. For $3 a month, you can support the creation of this podcast, pay my editor, and join a community of fellow caregivers out here just doing our best. Thank you again for joining me, Elle Billing, in this episode of Hoorf. Until next time, be excellent to each other. Hoorf is hosted by Elle Billing at Elle and Wink. Audio editing by Ricky Cummings at Ricky Poo. Music composed by Ricky Cummings. Hoorf is a production of Elle and Wink Art Studio, all rights reserved. Hoorf Podcast can be found on social media channels at Hoorf Podcast, at HOORF Podcast.